Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and in this video what I want to do is talk about web cookies, sort of what they are and how to use them, and benefits of choosing them over like something like local storage or session storage. So in other videos I've talked about like session storage and local storage, which is a front-end way of like storing data. So like for example, if I look in DevTools, so for any website, you look in DevTools, there's this tab called Application. And there's this section called Storage. So these are all the different ways that you can store data in the user's browser. Okay, I'm not talking about IndexedDB or trust tokens. Those are trust tokens. I think are pretty a newer thing, or WebSQL. Conversations for another day. Mainly I want to talk about sort of the more used ones: local storage, session storage, and cookies. Cookies have been sort of like they're the OG way of storing stuff in the user's browser. Okay. Now the interesting thing about cookies is that the way a cookie gets added to your computer is not from the front end. So if you ever worked with like local storage or session storage, you would do that from like your front end JavaScript. So you would do is like in your front end JavaScript, you would use a function like window dot local storage dot set item, and then you could actually like sit there and say, hey, I want to set an item called cheese, and this item equals Gouda, and you just say it's just a key value pair database. So I can sit there and say, okay, hey, that's an item in local storage. Okay, so I ran that function. And now if I go back to my application, I look inside local storage. And see now this is key and value. And if I go back there and I want to go retrieve it, I can be like window dot local storage dot get item. And I say I want to get the item cheese. And it's going to return me Gouda, because that's the item that's stored in local storage. And that's the same way that session storage works. So literally session storage would work the same way. It would just be window.sessionstorage.set item. Okay. And then it would be like cheese. This time we'll set it to Munster. And if I go back to application, I go to the session storage section. And I look at there, and there you see cheese Munster. So these are two separate, like they're two little mini databases of key value pairs. Okay, and generally like putting data inside of them and getting data out would have to be in your front end JavaScript. So it could be in the JavaScript that's attached to a script file, in your React code, in your Angular code. And the difference is that session storage saves the data for that browser session. So if I were to open up another tab to the same website, I open up a tab to the same website, Control-Shift-I, okay, and I go here, see there's that session storage one, the cheese Munster is no longer there. But if I go inside this tab, it's still there. But if I go here and I look at local storage, the cheese Gouda is still there. So local storage is permanent. It's going to stay in there until I delete it through my code. Or the user just comes here in DevTools and it can right-click and delete it or edit it and whatnot. Again, session storage, again, the minute there's a new tab or a new window, it's a fresh session cookie. Now, so that's session storage, local storage. Then there's cookies, but cookies are generally not set by the front end. Really, like the way the cookie gets into the browser is going to be based on the headers your backend server sets. Okay? So we'll practice that in a second. Okay, so you see here that like Mozilla's website gives me a few different cookies. And there's generally like there's a name of the cookie, and then a value that it sets that the server that in this case Mozilla's website is going to use for whatever purpose. And notice these are small bits of information. Okay, so I think like with local and session storage, each key value pair could be up to like 5 megabytes, maybe even 15 megabytes. Let me just check that out. Max size in local storage. See what the answer is. 5 megabytes. Okay, so I was right the first time. 5 megabytes, which is a lot of data when you're just talking about like a string. Like that's a large, so you can basically save a large JSON string with a lot of data. And that's generally what it's for. It's generally you really should be using local storage for data that's going to be in the user's browser. Like let's say you created a game that just the user plays locally and you want to save like the progress in the game. You can use local storage for that. It's not data that's needed back on the server they're making requests to. So it's like, For example, login information. For things like, hey, did the user log in already? A cookie might be a better option. Now, if you've ever worked with JWT tokens or JWT tokens, you might have used local storage or session storage. I have, in the sense that you log in, you give your front end the token, and then you store the token in local storage so you can grab it whenever you need it. But that's actually more code, because you actually have to go write the code to go get the token, and then write the token inside, generally in your request headers, to use the token. And that works fine. That's all fine and good, but it's just more code you have to write in your front end. Now, I'll show you how you can instead set that. I'll just show you how you set a cookie, but theoretically you could just set your JWT token to the value of the cookie, and you can have that data shipped on every request without having to type an additional line, that additional setting of a header every time you make a request to the server. But the max size of a cookie, okay, so the max size of a cookie is going to be much smaller because you're sending it on every request, and you don't want to make that request like super big. Okay, max size of a cookie. So about 4 bytes, 4 kilobytes really. Okay, 4 kilobytes. So you can't store like necessarily that much information, but it's really just supposed to be like a small string, like a JWT token or a username, something. So in that case, you know, that's how that kind of works. So let's show you how that would work. So the way you would set the cookie is really just a header. So again, it doesn't matter what framework, what language you're using to do your backend code. All that matters is on the response that should set the cookie. You have a header called set cookie. So it literally would look like this, set cookie. And then the value of that header would just be the name of the cookie and the cookie's value. So again, if I go back to here where I had this open, look at cookie, see like this is the name of the cookie and there's the value of the cookie. Okay, so let's just show you an example. I'm going to use Express, but you could technically take the same principle and use it in any framework. You just have to learn how to set the response headers. So how do I do it? In whatever framework you're doing, just Google how to set the response headers in X framework or in X language. And then that should get you the answer. But we'll do it in JavaScript with Express. So in that case, let me just start setting up an Express project. So I'm going to create a new file, server.js, open up terminal. And let's see here, new terminal. Okay, npm install, no, not npm install, npm init-y. Okay, npm init-y. And then I'm going to do npm install express. And then I'll do some more like Express specific things after I show you just a generic manually setting the headers, manually like getting the cookie without using some of the middleware and tools that Express makes available to you. Okay, so I'll just first set up in basic Express server. So const express equals require express const app equals express. Then we'll set up the server listener, app.listen on port 3555. And when we do that, we'll just say console.log listening on port 35555. And I'm going to make a route, one for setting the cookie and one for just seeing the cookie. So first off, we'll do app.get. So I want to make a get request to set cookie. I should just make it set cookie. And that should be /set/cookie. Yeah, let's just do that. Okay. And then we do rec res. And the thing is, I want to change. What does it not like about that? Oh, forgot the comma. Okay. I want to set the header. So say res.header. I want to look for set header. Here we go. And this function allows me to set a header. And first I have to give the name of the header and then the value of the header. So the header should be, just referring back to over here in our documentation, it's set cookie. So that's the header. So the header is set cookie. Okay, and then the value, we'll just say this is a key equals value, semicolon, because you can include more information. So say like set, so at minimum, that's essentially the header you're setting. Set cookie, key equals value, but you can get more specific. And generally, like if you want to, like if you're talking about like a JWT token, what you're going to want to do is take an extra step of putting some security measures on the token. Okay, you could set an expiration date, but if you don't, it'll just be treated as a session cookie. So they'll be like essentially they'll be logged in until they close their tab, which is not a bad way. It's not bad to let it be the default. But if they open up another tab, they'd have to log in again. Okay, you can, but this is the main thing I want to add, HTTP only. Okay, and there's also secure. Let me just remember what secure does. There are a couple ways to ensure that a cookie with a secure attribute is sent to the server only with encrypted requests over HTTPS protocol, never with unsecured requests. Yeah, so you probably want to set both of these. So you never want to send it. You'll never send the cookie if it's not an HTTPS request, which will protect, from like packet sniffing. And then you want to put HTTP only, which means it'll get sent on, it'll get sent with every request to the server, but your front-end JavaScript can't access the cookie. So if your front-end Java, or if someone's front-end JavaScript tries to access the cookie, it just won't let them. And the benefit of that is just so that way people can't like go try to do what's called cross-site scripting, where they somehow run a JavaScript on your page because maybe you have a form and you didn't sanitize the input on the form, so they were able to inject JavaScript into your page, and then they're able to like look at the cookie, get the data in the cookie, and go from there. So you want to kind of avoid that. So this is a nice thing that you don't have with local storage. With local storage, you are susceptible to cross-site scripting. Someone can somehow inject JavaScript in your page if you didn't set up your page securely, and then they can like get your local storage properties and session storage, which is another reason why to the extent that you can avoid it, you don't want to put any sensitive information in local or session storage. Okay, so I'm going to want to add those two properties. Okay, so I'm going to just say secure and HTTP only. Let me just make sure I spelled all that right. Secure, HTTP only needs to be uppercase. Cool. So there we go. So that's going to set the cookie called key and value, but actually we'll just say, I'll just do this. Cheese equals Gouda. So that was just a little bit more my style. You guys know me. Okay. And then I'll just, that's fine. Then I'm going to do res.send cookie shipped. Okay, and then I'm going to say app.get get cookie, and then we just say rec res. Okay, and I'm just going to want to res.json all the headers, just so that we can see that the headers have the cookie in them. Okay, that's what we're going to do there. So again, this is going to set the cookie. This will return all headers so that we can see, hey, is the cookie in the headers? Return all headers. Actually, I'm not even sure if it will be in the headers, but we'll check. I think it might be somewhere else in the request. Return all headers, and let's just do node server.js run the file. But the point is, like, you would just set the header. Every framework, anything that you run an HTTP server with, it's going to have some way to write a header in the response. You just need to write that header. Okay, so let's see here. Let me go to localhost 3555 / or actually set cookie shipped. Okay, so let me just double check. I can also see this in DevTools. So let's see here. Did a cookie actually get shipped? So here I go to the network. I don't see that there, but I can probably see it here. Cookie, and see, there's my cookie. There's my cookie. It got set. So if I refresh the page and I go back to network, I can even see that that happened. Okay, so you see there, a cookie got sent over when we went to cookie. And if I click on here, I go to headers. So I'm going to look at the response headers. And let's look for the cookie. There's the cookie. And see cheese, Gouda. And then it sent these other headers because that's just stuff that it's going to be set by default. Cool. So now, what did I do? I think it was a get cookie. Yeah, get cookie. So let's now go to get cookie to see if it's in the headers. Get/cookie. So let's take a look at what's inside the headers. Yep, and see there's the headers. And if I look in there, do I see cheese? Where's the cheese? I don't see cheese. Oh, because it's not HTTP. That's right. That's right, that's right, that's right. So let's change this. Let's make this not secure. Just so we can see this. And then we'll just make this bread equals rye. Okay, I mean technically, like what you would do instead is you would do like, you know, JWT token equals, and then you would put in your JWT token in here. So it would be like blah 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 blah. Okay. So if I restart this, no server.js, I go back and then let's do this again. So let's set cookie. The cookie is set. Let me just double check in my application that the cookie was set. And see, there's the token cookie. And see, again, this is within the cookies section. And I see the value. Okay, so that could be your JWT token. And then, see, like, I don't have to do anything special. The minute I make another request to the server, cookie, no, it's still not in there. So it must not be stashed in that spot. Cool, because I think Express actually does parse it out. I wish there was a way for like it to show you like just the raw request, but I should actually be able to see it in network too. So let me just see here. We went to this website. Let me just take a look at the request headers. Cookie. If not, do I see any other headers in there? User agent. Oh, there it is. There's the token. So token. And GA. But you see, you don't see cheese because cheese was, well, not included. But like that's not the clearest. But let's go back over here. I think there is a request.cookie. Request.cookies. There we go. So let's console log that, because I think it actually, in Express, they'll actually break down the cookie for you. So I'm going to restart the server. Oh, I'm missing something. I think it's a parenthesis. There we go. So now if I refresh this page, okay, so that got me nothing. Rec.cookies dot nothing. Query string. I think it's because we need some cookie parsing middleware. So there is middleware in Express for parsing the cookie. So let's go to npm install. I think it's like cookie parser. And then I would just think, say const cp equals require cookie parser. So instead of parsing the body, you're parsing the cookie. And then I'll just put that as middleware. So app.use cp. Let me make sure this is what I think it's going to do. cp. Yep. Okay, I think that's what I want. Okay. For now, we'll take a look at the cookie parser documentation, but let me just restart the server. Okay. Refresh. Oop, it wasn't happy with that. Oh, I ran the wrong command. Node server.js. Okay, and so there's the cookie. So it didn't pick up on the token. So let's try this a different way. Let me try not token. Let's call this probably token is probably too generic a term. Hello equals world. Okay. So let's see here. Let's first set the cookie by running that again, but I got to restart the server. So let me go back, restart, and then let's go to set cookie. Okay. And then let's try to go get the cookie. It still doesn't quite give it to me. And if I go over here to application and I take a look at my cookies, where did they go? Did I break my header? Hello equals world. Set cookie. Cookie shipped. So we did that. So let me just take a look here. Set cookie. Okay, and see like the cookie was set, and I see the cookie here. And then if I go to get cookie, but it's path specific. So here's the issue. So like, okay, so take a look at this. See this path column? That means it's set for the particular path. So it's not for all URLs, just for when I go to this particular page. And see, it's a session token. I mean, a session cookie, which means it'll get destroyed based on the session. So I probably have to add another piece for it to be just like a domain cookie. So, and I think that's what this is right here. So what do we have to add? The domain. Okay, so for example, set. If domain is specified, then subdomains are always included. Therefore, specifying a domain is less restrictive than omitting it. However, it can be helpful when subdomains need to share. The domains pre-specify which hosts are allowed. Hosts are the same host. And looks like probably the path does the same thing. Okay, so URL path must exist if the URL, in order to the character is considered a directory separator. Basically, in order to send the cookie header, the X. Okay, so we do need to specify all that. So basically I need to change this, all that other detail. So it have to be like path equals slash and domain. Well, I can leave it to equal the current host. I don't care about subdomains. Let's try to set that up again. See. Okay, so let's go back over here. Let me go back to set cookie again. So let me go back over here to hello world. Okay, so now we have two versions of the cookie. Let me just see here and go like this for shift refresh. Yep, no, now I have two versions of the cookie. Okay, and this version of the cookie is now for any path. So now if I go to get cookie, and there's the cookie. Okay, so what did we learn? To make sure that we can use it on different like routes, we have to make sure that like the path property set. And again, this is me manually setting the cookie. I'm not using like Express's sort of built-in way of setting up cookies, which makes life a little bit easier. But I mean, again, the reason why I wanted to show this is because this you can translate to literally any framework. You just say, how do I set headers in that framework? And you just do this. Okay? You just say, hey, I want this header to have this value of this string. And that's going to set the cookie. Okay, and again, you can kind of see here, this is how the cookies are behaving. So you see it's still a session cookie. And all of these things I can kind of specify. So I see it says HTTP only. I didn't put it as secure. I didn't put it as same site or same party. These are all things you can change. Just read the NDN docs to see like all these different attributes and what they do and what you can set them to. But let's see here. Setting cookies in Express. There is a sort of special way to do that. So let's look that up. Setting cookies in Express. Okay. Cool. Okay, we already installed Cookie Parser. And that allowed us to see what's inside the cookie. Again, remember we loaded up the cookie and it was blank until we set up the Cookie Parser. So the cookie doesn't automatically parse. You may receive the header, but it doesn't automatically parse. So make sure you always download the Cookie Parser middleware. Okay, now let's talk about cookie set. Okay. So you see here, there's actually a res method where you can set a cookie. So let's try that out. So instead of me doing this, I'm going to do res.cookie, and this time we'll do bread equals rye. Okay, so that's the cookie I'm going to send with my response. So let's go restart the server first. Okay, and then I would just refresh the page. Well, let me just go to set cookie. If we want to set another cookie. Set cookie. Cool. So now, okay, do I see a set cookie? Why did it not run? Did the server not run? Oh no, I didn't run the server. There we go. And then, so the cookie was shipped, and let's take a look at our here. So here's bread, and you see when you use the cookie thing, it automatically sets the path to /, so that's good. It doesn't set it up as HTTP only though. Okay, so that's a thing there. So we'd have to figure out like how do we set that property. I'm sure we could just set that in there somehow. Let's see, string value, and then there'd be options. So I'm imagining I could just do an object here, and then here's the different options. So max age, expires, convert to expires. Oh, so we can set a max age, that's nice. Sign the cookie, path defaults to 2. Okay, I'm gonna assume that there probably is a HTTP. Yep, there we go. See, HTTP only is a property, so that I can set to true right there in that argument. Okay, yay for just kind of. This is why it's important to pick up on conventions, because even if you don't necessarily know something explicitly, you can oftentimes make educated guesses based on the way the conventions you've seen other people use things. Okay, but now if I set this up again, okay, and see now the bread cookie is HTTP only. Cool. Which is again, all that's going to do is just prevent any JavaScript running in the front end from being able to access that cookie directly. It'll only be used for sending an HTTP request to the path and domain that it is allowed to do. So now if I go to get cookie, I see hello world and bread. Okay, hello world and bread. I see, so I see all that from the tokens. Again, we don't see, well, we don't see the other tokens because the other tokens again don't show up on this particular path, because again by default it's going to use the path that you're on, the host that you're on, the domain that you're on, which is why we specified path when we did it manually. The cookie set when you do use Express to set it. So essentially what you'd want to do is you would just be like, okay, I want to set my token cookie to the JWT token. Okay, and that's kind of how you would set it. And then the cool thing about that is you would use the cookie parcel middleware. You'd get the cookie from there, and so from rec.cookies, and then you just don't ever need to have to worry about passing the token in the front end. It'll just automatically work. So if you ever use localStorage to store it, or didn't use cookies, you probably had to go through the pain of always including the JWT token in the header with every request. If you did authorization, bury in the token over and over again. This way you avoid it. It's more secure because I can limit it. I can make sure that it's protected from what's called cross-site scripting, and it's easier. Okay, so this is cool. So again, now you know what local storage is because we talked about that. What session storage is, and you know how to use cookies. Okay, and you even know a little bit more about how to use cookies specifically in Express. But again, the concepts that we talked about directly translate into how you structure your HTTP requests in any framework. It's just how do you set your header, and then just making sure you parse those headers on the way in. Every framework's going to have their own way of doing that, so read their documentation. But it's all about cookies and make life easier. So, yay! Like if you ever use like session middleware in any framework, essentially they set a session cookie, and that's how they know like, okay, hey, this browser session has access to this session cookie, this session data, and whatnot. So, cool. My name is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com. Have a great day and enjoy.